I'm Johnny Lewis, and I want to thank you for viewing my presentation for today's class. About me, I am first a spouse and a father of two children. You can see them there in the picture. I live in Shawnee, Kansas. I am the district center-based teacher for secondary students who have emotional and behavioral needs for the DeSoto School District. My hobbies and interests include the Tennessee Volunteers, the Kansas City Chiefs, Sporting KC, big fan, have season tickets. Fish, jam bands, love music, reading Neil deGrasse Tyson, trying to learn about science, even though there's so little of it I truly understand. Professionally, I've spent 7, almost 8 years now in secondary special education, doing collaborative teaching and mostly center-based behavior programs, which also includes a lot of para-education staff management. And prior to that, I spent 9 years in nonprofit management, doing a lot of fundraising, budgeting, and staffing. Educationally, I have a master's in special education. I have a master's in divinity with an area of study in clinical counseling, which comes in handy in the work that I do with social and emotional student needs. And then I have a doctorate in theology, and my dissertation area is nonprofit management, sustainability, and community partnerships in the 21st century. As it relates to this week's reading and lessons, the first article we were asked to read was Teacher Supervision and Evaluation. And this article was produced by the National Association of Secondary School Principals, and it talked about the purpose of evaluations and how they should be done in a healthy and positive way, that they should include a variety of data. They should be focused on teacher growth and not like a gotcha type scenario, or just be a rubber stamp, but truly be focused on teacher development, and that they should provide an opportunity to receive and to provide feedback that's reflective. The second article we were asked to read was 10 Steps Towards Staff Well-Being, and I've included here just kind of a summary of those 10 steps that schools should have a mental health champion. There should be somebody in the school whose sole purpose is thinking about the mental health of the staff and the students. In my school, that's a social worker who checks in with staff and students about different issues related to mental health, that we have a policy in place related to staff mental health, that there's a culture that invites sharing of concerns, that seeks feedback. In my school, our administrators seek our feedback through surveys, through checking in and one-on-ones, and also through surveying members of the staff via our Teachers Association once a month. And then support staff caring for student mental health, provide an atmosphere that trains us through professional development and provides us with access to people who can help us to understand student needs better. And then providing access to mental health support ourselves. In our school, we have a program where we're able to call and be provided with so many free counseling sessions. There are lots of signs up in our teachers' lounge and other places around the school. Modeling and expecting healthy time boundaries, not calling staff on the weekends or expecting them to respond to emails over the weekend, or particularly being disparaging of staff when they choose to set those boundaries, but also modeling them as a building leader. Providing safe space in the building. I know one of the things my school has done during the pandemic is provided a wellness room for staff where we can go and there's kind of a water fountain and some soft lighting, and we can have some reflective time if we need to because it's been such a stressful year. Encouraging non-work events for staff. In the school where I work, we have food trucks that come and visit, and we do staff outings to baseball games and things like that. Seeking staff feedback and making staff health an agenda item at all meetings, making sure that that's a priority. The next article that we were asked to consider was the comparison of face-to-face and online training and improving managers' confidence to support the mental health of their workers. And essentially what the research from this article suggested is that both online trainings and face-to-face trainings are helpful and valuable to managers, but that face-to-face training had longer-term effectiveness. And so in thinking about ways to support building leaders as we support our teachers, and thinking about ways to support teachers as they support students, these are important things to be aware of as we're thinking about ways to offer training. And then the recruitment, retention, and development of quality teachers in hard-to-staff schools. And hard-to-staff schools means, for the purposes of the article, meant schools in neighborhoods where socioeconomic differences might make the school a more difficult job sometimes, or provide unique limits and unique cultural experiences that might be different for teachers. And so some of the ways that were suggested by this articles, in particular that I found helpful, was connecting with a university or college for a partnership that it can include recruiting, job shadowing, and exposure of the staff to connect with the school or to give teachers in training an opportunity to grow. And then in having intentionally hired paid staff mentors rather than expecting kind of the teacher who's already super busy doing other things to be a mentor on top of all that, instead to have intentional people who are paid to do that, providing relevant professional development, pay competitively, and encourage school life participation, encourage participation in school events, going to games, being involved on staff committees, all the ways that we get more emotionally connected to the places where we serve. The next article that we looked at was the focus on teacher well-being to improve retention in schools. And so this provided some strategies for improving retention. I think one of the things I picked up through all of the reading is that staff retention is really about providing, creating a culture and a safe space where teachers really want to work. And particularly in those schools that may be hard to staff, making sure that those are places where teachers are making the choice to work in a tougher environment because the school culture is so positive. And so some particular suggestions from this article were a focus on transparency among leadership, seeking staff feedback, some of the things we've already talked about, focusing on mindfulness and mental health, and then the building leaders being aware of the mental health of staff and the burnout potential. One of the things I've really appreciated about my building leaders through the pandemic, and I think we've had 6 first days of school this school year already because we've changed our learning model so much. And our building leaders have been keenly aware of where we're at as a staff and doing extra things for us to try and discourage burnouts and really sticking up for us with the district to seek ways to give us days off or encouraging us to take mental health days, all those things that we need to be in a more healthy place, and particularly in a difficult school year. And then as far as my critical analysis goes, some strategies I learned for developing a collaborative professional culture that's designed to support improvement. When I think about improvement, I think about that first conversation about teacher evaluation. And I've kind of worked in schools where I think perfection was expected and there was no room to grow. There was no opportunity to express areas where you needed to grow. And so evaluations felt like gotcha moments. And I think what the research and the reading bears out here is that teacher evaluation should be focused on growth, on really helping teachers identify ways they need to grow and making it a reflective practice and not something that creates a lot of tension and stress for teachers where they feel like they're just performing something that isn't real. And then provide professional development related to that as well. And then as it relates to retention, I kind of already spoke about these, but providing opportunities for job shadowing and exposure and partnership through university, paying competitively and encouraging just that community connection to schools. I'm keenly aware that the schools I've worked in, I've had the opportunity to work in 4 districts because I moved around while my wife was in school. And the district where I was able to be there the longest, to really know, a full class of students and go to their games and be connected to their parents and their families in the community. They're the places where I felt the most rooted and where it was most difficult for me to leave. And then as far as learning, again, it comes back to encouraging staff growth, appropriate staff development, professional development for staff that's relevant, that really has to do with what's going on in the classroom. Encouraging that face-to-face training, which comes back to that mentor piece, and hiring full-time mentors to work with staff. As far as developing a collaborative professional culture that's designed to support well-being, providing staff, making sure that the school has thought about this enough to have a policy about staff mental health, to think about who the person is that staff can go to when they're struggling with their mental health or they just need to debrief. And then also making sure that staff, not just that it exists, but that staff are well aware of how to access that mental health support that's outside the school. Encouraging a healthy work-life balance and providing space in the building for rest and for encouraging non-working staff events. For me, the readings and this lesson increased my knowledge of supervision and evaluation as it relates to healthy ways to encourage improvement for teachers, to make sure that we're not just rubber stamping things, but that we're truly encouraging growth, and also that we aren't providing such a high pressure situation that teachers aren't able to really reflect, but to really think about healthy models for improvement. I've learned about teacher retention, that research-based recommendations are really about creating good, healthy places to work and being the kind of leader that models healthy boundaries and pays attention to the needs of their staff. For learning, by thinking about teacher growth again, and also thinking about staff well-being, because that then allows our staff to think about student well-being and student learning. And then learning effective tips for encouraging teacher mental health and job satisfaction will increase both teacher and student well-being. This is relevant to me, as I mentioned before, reviewing concepts related to staff emotional and physical health and our need to understand means of supporting student health. I feel more equipped to provide a healthy work environment for a staff as a building leader. And then as far as what I've witnessed as an educator, as I mentioned before, I've kind of been in, I've worked in 4 schools, and 3 of the 4 I really felt like were positive, supportive places for teachers, where I felt like my building leaders wanted me to grow as a professional and were aware of my own limitations and you know, that I couldn't be all things all the time, and had healthy boundaries and expectations for me. In all those places, I feel like I really grew and was mentored and developed as an educator. The one district where I didn't feel as supported and where I felt like perfection was the expectation and there was no room to be transparent about areas where I needed to grow, I just felt like a lot of people in that building were walking on the eggshells and weren't in a good place emotionally, and a lot of us were looking for other places to work for those reasons. So as a future building leader, I want to create the kind of place where staff, where the bar is not, where there is a bar to cross, where things aren't just rubber stamped, but the bar is growth and not perfection, where there's transparency and an opportunity to be reflective and to admit when there are things we need to understand better, to be the kind of building leader who's aware of the mental health needs of my staff and who's created healthy pathways for encouraging that mental health. These are the resources that I used for creating this presentation. Thank you.